Hello everybody, and welcome to another hair-raising, fun-filled, expeditious, exciting episode of Radiorama, where I show you how to work on, of all things, as the name implies, radios, but occasionally TV sets, stereos, record players, basically anything that runs on glowing vacuum tubes from about the 1920s through about the 1960s. And today we have a Radiola model 61-8, typical 5-tube set, as we call them, AA5 or All-American 5 sets, floating hot chassis. Radiola was one of the trade names under RCA. When RCA came up with one of their first commercially available radios, it was called the Radiola, and they continued that name apparently up until who knows when, maybe the early 50s. Now, this one does not work. The switch on it appears to not be engaging. Now, that either means that it won't turn off because the little spring-mounted trap, well, it's like a little pawl, that might be frozen. Or the switch could be genuinely bad, at which point I have to replace the switch and the volume pot because they're built in together. So I don't know what the situation is, whether this would work or not. The switch is simply malfunctioning. But I'll need to take it apart and we'll investigate underneath to see what's happening. Alright, well, I've taken the chassis out and it is, from what I can tell, 100% original. This is all factory original. Nothing's been done to it since day one. This is the original set of electrolytics. There are two values in there. The end of it is ruptured, which means it's either shorted or about to be shorted. So I'm not even going to try to power it up. The switch, it feels very funny. I don't have a very good feeling about that. I get a feeling we might have to be replacing that pot entirely. It's fascinating. If you look at the tube sockets, they're made out of this brownish orange material. It's referred to as basically mica reinforced plastic. It's able to stand a lot of heat, doesn't deform or anything, but it was more costly. You usually see it maybe on something like commercial equipment, test gear, or military equipment, but there it is. Likewise, sometimes if you see a tube that has this material, higher quality, more resistant heat, but heat-resistant plastic. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is soak this switch with WD-40. I'm going to try to get it in past here, and then we're going to warm up the shaft with the soldering iron, see if that'll loosen up the gunk. Alright, good, bad news. Good news, I can turn it off and on now, but something is really super messed up with the switch. I'm not sure if you can see this, but it's actually physically popping. It's really hard to turn off and on. So that needs to be replaced. Now I have two pots available. I have this one, 350K. That's about 100K less than what I need here. The other opportunity is that my wife's cleaning out her office, and I'd say about 2 years ago I had a radio that was, let's just put it this way, I blew it up in the worst possible way to the point where it wasn't worth fixing. But it's bound to have a volume pot in here. That was probably exactly what I need. The only problem is, how long is the shaft on it? I'll need to take the chassis out and compare the two. If it's not long enough, I'll just go with the other one. It'll probably still work. The answer is that's the right value of volume pot, but it's got the wrong shaft. This has this split spline shaft, and I need a Half Moon split shaft. I'm looking in here too. There's a decent amount of capacitors I could harvest. Maybe I'll do that. Anyway, it's too bad. This guy was working great, and then I touched it with the soldering iron while it was still plugged in. I don't know what it did, but it just blasted a lot of things, and I didn't ever get around to it. So it's out on the curb. X tubes. Did I get the speaker out of it too? That's probably a good speaker. Here, look. course I did. Alright, I'll put this back on the curb. Welcome back to day 2 working on the radiola. I kind of have to admit I'm kind of in a shitty mood. The other day I locked my keys in the truck and the door was just barely ajar, and I was like, well, maybe I can just crack it open. And I tried, I pulled on it. It would not come open, so I had to call a locksmith. And he was in and out of there in 5 seconds. $170. And when I got home, I realized that my key would not go into the door. So I took the door panel off and my handle off my truck, and the tumblers in here, I think, got kind of jarred. And unfortunately, I used to be able to do this. 20 years ago, I used to be part-time locksmith, but not on cars. I was on basically stuff for houses. So to get my mind off of that, because I have a locksmith coming on the way who will probably charge me who knows how much more money, I'm going to do one thing, which is go ahead and replace this volume pot, which is acting all weird and crunchy. Yeah, something horrible. It should not be making that noise. Now, as I mentioned, I don't have a 500K pot. I have a 350K pot. Might be enough. We'll see. If not, I'll go over to the museum tomorrow, which I should have done today, but I didn't because I got frustrated with this stupid truck. We'll try it out. Got nothing else to lose. All right, well, I've replaced the pot here with the new one. And I'm going to be at least a little safe this time. I'm going to plug in my isolation transformer. Why is that so loud? Jesus. Anyway, I'm just going to flash this to see if we get any juice. I sure don't see anything. Ugh. See if you see anything as far as these tubes are filthy. All right. She's dead. Like deader than dead. So before I get too carried away, let me test my tubes. I know bare minimum I need to replace this god-awful looking electrolytic, but I'd rather know if it's something like a tube before I invest a lot of time into something that may be too big of a pain in the ass to go forward with, at least with my level of patience right now. And if this one is good, then our filament's intact. So let's see, 12.6 HS8 HS 8 3 4 6 5 3 4 6 5. That's just a short test. I don't want that. I want the filament test. Oh, okay, HS5. Sorry, 4068 4068. And what do we got? Bias 0 0 and C. Losing track of the tubes here. Please, please be bad. Otherwise, we might have there's a little 1/4 watt resistor that usually comes off the rectifier. If that thing's open, that'll kill the everything down the line. I've got no problems here. No shorts. So it's time to take a look at some resistors, see if we've got one in the string open. All right, well, I checked the resistor that can cause you to have filament failure. It's this little guy right here, and it tests fine. The only other thing I can think that could possibly be wrong is if our line cap, this is the other end of the line, if that's gone bad. I can test it with my old-fashioned meter. I can't really film that, but I'm going to do a check on that. It could just be we had a loose tube pin. I don't know. This is really weird. It's not powering up, period. Figured out what the problem was. I kind of had this weird suspicion, because I've had this happen before, that maybe the cord was open. I'm not going to do it one-handed, but basically I was getting like 4 volts. Why is my isolation transformer so loud? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a cheater cord out and we're going to run it through there and see if we get life. Alright, do not do what I'm about to do. I ran my jumper cables directly and I'm prepared for sparks. That doesn't make any sense. Why did that make that noise? Oh. Alright, let's try this. Jesus Christ. Super freaking bizarre. So something is broken in the chain here. And what it is, I'm not sure what. This is... I feel like I'm doing something really stupid here. There's got to be something that I've left out. Alright, well, I made a possibly interesting discovery. The tube decal on the bottom of this set does not jive with what the schematic shows. On the label on the set, it says the rectifier needs to be up here, which I thought was weird. It's kind of like really close to the speaker. But the schematic shows 12SA7 in the front, so I swapped those guys. So I'm going to carefully turn it on and plug it in, see if we get anything at all. Well, that's aggravating. That didn't do anything. Now I'm not sure what to trust. I hope the schematic's accurate. Freaking annoying. Well, I just tried something else. This new switch I put in here, the mechanism is frozen because I did a measured across the switch part and I was getting no reaction on the old multimeter. Tell you what, this is going to be, so whoever buys this thing is going to pay more money just because it's such a pain. So what I did is I squirted some juice in there to start to loosen things up. You know, this thing's new old stock. It's probably been sitting around for 60 years, and all the grease or whatever they put inside the switch mechanism that never got used probably solidified. Usually tell if it's going to work. If it's starting to feel more like a switch, you'll start making a more crisp sound. Yeah, I'm definitely getting more of a positive switch vibe here. So I'll test that with my multimeter to see if we've got switchage, and then I'll hook it up again to see if we've got power. Alright, so I did test the switch. It's now actually switching. Here we go again, fireworks. Fire in the hole. Oh dear. Whoa, woohoo! Alright. We have got filament. The pilot light just blew, which means either the rectifier's fucked up on it, or maybe that was the wrong place to put the tube. Let me switch those tubes back. Alright, let's try this again. I run out of 47s, but I put a higher voltage bulb in there just because I wanted to have something in there for filament testing. Let's try it out now. Alright, that's good news. That means that we've got B+, but this cap, of course, is completely hosed, as seen by its innards spewing out of the end here. So we'll just replace those guys, and then we'll bring it up and see if we get any sort of life. But the good news is, juice is actually getting to this set. Wasted an hour and a half doing that. I clipped this out, see what we got here. 50 and 30 microfarads, 150 volts. Yeah, that guy spewed. Here we go. Here's our green, red, and common. Nice cloth covered wire. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get my two replacements and put them here and there and join their negatives together and use this common ground to join them together. It's not a whole lot going on in here. We only have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 caps. It's what I call a money-saving radio. You don't have to use as much parts. Dust bunnies. Anyways, time to try it out. We have our new electrolytics installed, which will hopefully get rid of our AC hum. Maybe we'll get something as far as super unhappy there. What's going on? I want to recheck the situation with the tube locations. There's something very funny about this. Let me unplug it. Here's the other thing too, is that I've had this experience where that rectifier is in the correct position because we got the pilot light coming off of either end of the tins. Let's see. That looks right. So I'm going to make a guess here. I've noticed that with 3.5Z5s, they can test good, but then they can also subsequently short without testing as short. So what I was looking at was that pilot light was starting to look like it was about to blow. And when you see that, that usually indicates you've got some gas in the rectifier. I know that I'm doing is super dangerous, so don't do what I'm doing. Alright, let's go ahead and plug it back in. See if we get any improvement. Whoa! I'm getting ready to yank the cord if I have to. It is dead. Whoa, whoa. That was starting to come up. I didn't even look what the voltage is supposed to be on that bulb. Number 51, let me look that up. Alright, I'm going to stop dicking around. We've clearly got a shorted cap in there. The bulb that's supposed to be in there is like 7 point something volts, and the bulb that God damn it. Clearly, I'm an idiot. But anyway, one of these guys is shorted. That's causing a surge once it warms up. Alright, after much trial and tribulation and embarrassment, it does work.
From half radiant apple. Orville Wynn, who we've going through.
It's actually pretty sensitive. But what I did is I replaced a number of critical caps. The coupling caps between the output tube, the grounding cap. I've replaced it with the safety cap. It's a .01 rated X2, Y2 across the line safety cap, that orange mustardy looking thing. And then there was also a cap going from the rectifier. This guy is just, that's coming off of the, I believe the antenna, so I'm not too concerned about that. That wouldn't have anything critically important to do with any shorts in that circuit. I'm going to replace it anyway, but I spent 2 hours on this tonight, and I'm just glad I got it working. It's always kind of embarrassing to be defeated by something you've worked on 10,000 times. It's a humbling experience. Reminds you that you're always learning this stuff. There's a hole in my truck. Look at there. Anyway, a locksmith was supposed to come and he never did, so I guess I'll have to drive around with a kind of janky looking truck for a little while. But anyway, this is day 2 of working on, actually day 3 of working on the radiola. And I'm hoping that today will be a little bit less catastrophic, because yesterday was stupid. Like I felt like a real idiot making so many obvious mistakes. But now that the set is done, I'm going to do something I know is probably going to make some people angry, but I'm just going to do it anyway. So I've probably restored this same model, I don't know how many times, a lot, and it's really common. And the bakelite is sort of okay. I'm just going to be honest. The plain styling of this and the boring brown bakelite color is going to make it very difficult to find a new home for it. And people don't, unless it's got an interesting style and the bakelite's perfect. I find a lot of the people that come to our shows don't like something as plain as that, so I'm going to spice it up a little bit. Me and my wife went to one of the big box stores for something. We were actually getting chicken wire because we have some new cats, and I'm trying to introduce them slowly to the existing cats by kind of putting some chicken wire over my office door so they can see each other and not freak out. It turned out that actually, while we were gone over the weekend, they escaped and were in the house, and so no need for the chicken wire. They're used to each other now. Well, while I was there, I got some spray paint, and I'm going to make a sexist statement. The ladies love this color. That doesn't mean if you're a guy and you like that color too that it's a problem. I mean, if you think that's cool, that's fine too. Who cares? But what I am going to do is dismantle the case, take the glass out, scrub the crap out of it. And since it's hotter than hell out there, I'm going to move my truck so I don't get overspray on it. I'm going to take this out there and do a paint job, and then we'll resume working on the chassis over here. I can already feel the seething anger right now with people about this decision, but like I said, super common model, not so great design, needs a little spice up, so it's going to get kind of a makeover, pretty dramatic makeover. All right, so we are all prepared. Scrubbed it in the sink with Simple Green several times, and then I used rubbing alcohol on both the knobs and the case. We want to make sure we get a good adhesion for our paint. And I've learned these days with the crappy new spray paint, you really got to shake it up like crazy. Probably have been doing this for about 2 minutes off and on, so it's probably as good as it's going to get. This is also Krylon. I think I'm having better luck with Krylon for some reason. Anyway, ordinarily I wear a respirator, but I'm showing you guys how to do this, and the wind is blowing that way, so it's away from me. So we're all good. And you never know if the paint's really going to stick, because sometimes you have oil that is soaked into the bakelite, and no matter how hard you scrub, sometimes it doesn't all come out. So let's hope we're lucky this time. Yep. It appears that I don't have any resistance so far. Of course, it would have been much wiser to start off with a primer. I'm too damn lazy to do that. I'm a cheapskate, and besides, they say this new stuff has primer already built into it, or formulated into it, whatever. And so the idea is you don't want to stop, and you don't want to stop on any one particular place. You want to sweep over the whole thing. And as another commentator previously correctly said, don't put your finger over the front of the nozzle. Anyway, I'm getting tired of doing this one-handed, so I'm going to put the camera down. Okay, so this paint was weird also. It didn't flow right, but I was able to kind of tame it and get the finish I want, which is, you know, there's nothing worse than a really amateur-looking paint job. Like if it's got runs, or it's not even or glossy, or you're missing stuff. Like people can tell right away if you just completely fudged something. You want this to look, you know, even if it didn't come in this color, you want it to look believable. And so that's what we've done here. I'm hoping that the paint will set properly. I've been having a problem with some of these newer spray paint where it kind of acts funny after it's been sitting for a while. The knobs are looking good. It's really hot out here, so this should set rather quickly. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go back inside and start working on the chassis. Jesus. I do not do well with heat anymore. I grew up in the South where it's hotter than hell, and I moved out here to California. Anytime it gets remotely hot, I'm like, good, I'm going to die. All right, I want to make kind of a little bit of a point here. I've heard people repeatedly say, well, they'll put a polarized plug on their floating hot chassis or hot chassis set, which logically makes sense. When you turn the set on, you'll be on the neutral side, right? Well, what happens when you turn the set off? So, I've got a polarized plug installed because that's what I had laying around. Took a 50-50 chance at guessing which way to turn it. I chose correctly, but, like I said, the set is off. I've got a clip running from chassis. I'm going to touch the other side to the body on my outlet, which will be ground. Well, there we go. I need to get new probes, but like we've got 120 volts sitting right there. Now, turn the set on. Let's do the same thing. Like basically nothing. So that's in neutral mode while it's on. But, like I said, there's a real reason why I recommend that if you want to halt that possibility of any sort of meaningful current getting to the user, then you've got to install the right cap. And what I've installed here is an across-the-line rated cap. It's 0.01 microfarads. That is going to the chassis here. That's going to lower the current level down to a really low level. I mean, I'm not advocating people do this and then touch their radios or whatever, because you will feel a little bit of a tingle, but it's going to be way below, a dangerous threshold. The last thing I'm going to do to make sure that the overall chassis is safe is I'm going to test it on my rig over here. There is a possibility it'll fail because there is I think a grid ground on one of these, let's see, where is it? That guy. What's that coming off of? Yeah, it's coming off of the grid of the 12S Q7. So if it's going to fail, it's just going to be leaking through there. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. All right, so it is indeed failing. Because what I'm doing here, I'm running this through this box. This is hooked up to my multimeter set to 2 volts AC range, or maximum. On this scale is going to be 0.6 of a volt. It's off scale. We're almost at 2 volts, probably over. So it fails. Now reversing it, of course it's going to pass. That's the neutral side, but that's still pretty high. So, I don't advocate that anyone do this. I'm going to go ahead and snip this connection. I should not be doing this. It's so stupid. All right, now let's flip it over and see if we've corrected the... Ooh, it's still high. So we've probably got another ground in there. I'm guessing it's probably another ground coming off of one of the tube sockets. Another thing to look for to see if there's any resistors going to ground. That too can cause an issue. So I'm just going to have to drop the phone and take a peek, looky-loo around here to see what else is touching. Okay, so now I'm just annoyed. I've clipped all of the negative leads that I could find. Of course, that killed the reception. I'll have to add a cap back in there, but it's still failing. I even tried switching out the tubes. Sometimes I've had issues with internal shorts in the tubes. I don't think I'm having an issue there. It's really aggravating. I found the problem. I was looking, this is going to be hard to film, but the rubber washers underneath the tuning condenser, one of them was completely squashed. And so that was touching the chassis. And so now, when I try it out, I get well below the threshold. Now, I need to return not video. I need to get the radio working again. I think I know how. Probably going to involve sticking a little cap somewhere. But we can do that on the bench. I'm going to bring a cap over here and try that out. Okay, so what I did is I attached 2.01 microfarad caps to the two places I clipped. And that restored radio.
That said,
And added bonus, still way below that threshold. That's good. So I'll clean this mess up. I feel better about myself already. Sometimes I was like, failure. Let's see how the paint's doing. Oh, that looks perfect. Man, that stuff settled. That stuff settled really well. No, freaking pink radio. But like I said, the ladies will buy the crap out of them. Every time I get one of these pink radios out there, they buy them right away. So we soldered that stuff in. Then it'll be time to move onward to the next stage, which is adding an audio input feature so that the future owner can listen to actual music and not the kind of crap they play on talk radio. All right, so I put those two new caps in there. We got one here, and then this little disc guy, that's the other ground coming off those grids. I cleaned up the chassis a little bit. Now I'm going to oil the bearings for the tuning condenser up here. It's just going to make things turn a little bit easier. There's one in the front, one in the back, and one in the middle. Then you also want to lubricate your pulleys, wherever they may be. Let's see. You just want to kind of touch up, just gently. You don't have to put much oil on it. All of your little pivots and pulleys. Where's that other one? There's one here. I mean, these are nylon, so they're probably okay, but it just makes it a little bit easier. Makes it also feel a little bit nicer when you tune it. So let's give that a whirl. Oh yeah, it's already feeling a lot better. It's also quieter. So with that, now that I've gotten, I believe, the chassis in decent shape, let's give it a final test as far as both safety and actual radio performance. Trying to do this one-handed. Come on. All right, it's on. And I think I didn't flip this switch, so it should be in hot mode. 0.36. Of course, it's going to go up a little bit as the tubes start to really heat up. It's not going to get much higher than that. I might make it to 4.4. Now, hopefully the radio will still work. Well, that's pretty embarrassing. What the hell? You know, I did tighten that screw up. I'm wondering if maybe I need to unloosen that. Let me see. Well, you're not going to believe this, but the output tube that was fine decided to take a dump. And so I've had to put another output tube in it. Still passing. And we've restored radio.
Or visit PacificCoastTermite.com today.
Meet Boost, the fizzing amazing vitamin boost that make you feel like.
I think it's time to do a little bit of an alignment here. I'm going to use exactly the tools you're not supposed to use. I'm going to use a metal screwdriver. This is my stupid generic way of doing it.
Wire lines, 4 of them around the Bay Area this afternoon. Also, we're going to check in with our KCBS insider, Phil Mateer. He's going to talk about big changes coming to California as the U.S. Supreme Court decision expands gun rights today.
We're going to move over to the Bay Area Chevy Dealer Sports Desk and check in with...
And the USA...
puede llevar a daño al riñón, casi todos los días los trabajadores agrícolas regresan a su casa con daño agudo al riñón. A largo plazo se les puede convertir en daño crónico. y es cuando empiezan a tener insuficiencia renal y pueden llegar hasta diálisis, ¿no? Pero todas esas enfermedades en realidad se les vienen desarrollando por mucho tiempo. Y como mencionabas también el paro cardíaco, diabetes,
They meet the Royals tomorrow. Bay Area's best traffic. I'm Brian Drake, Bloomberg 96. To the document, the order was...
All right. That was the 5 nickel, 5 cent alignment. If you do it the right way, you're supposed to use this guy. I just don't feel like getting it down. I just do it by ear. It was just a little bit off. It wasn't too bad. Anyway, this freaking workbench is a mess. Let me clean this up. Look what just came in. Tell you what, we've been getting a lot of consoles lately. This is a Westinghouse. I took the back off of it. And it's another kind of a cheap console. But boy, does it got good style. But that's not what we're working on. That's for another time. So... I just realized that I've got the radio cranked in here. Let me turn that down and we'll continue filming. Sorry about that. So now is the time to put in the oh so famous audio input feature as a plane flies overhead. I swear to God. They never told me when I bought this house that there's a direct line of airplanes that constantly goes overhead. And now there's a jet plane. Unreal. Anyway, I hope you can hear me. We're going to run the audio input through the volume pot. And I'm going to run it through an isolation transformer. I try to explain this every time I do one of these episodes, but I know it's confusing. But anyway, all this is, it's just like a wall wart transformer. There's a 120 volts goes in and 12 volts goes out the other side. So this is the primary. This is where your 120 would come in. It's the same thing. If you live in Europe and you've got 220, it'd be 220 in and 12 volts out. And so what we want to do is have the primary go to either side of the volume pot. You know, the volume pot has 3 lugs. You can probably see those a little bit here. 1, 2, and 1 on the bottom. So you want to attach it to the outer of the 3. So this one and that one. And you want your incoming audio to go to the top of the volume pot, which is essentially where your IF signal comes. And on top of that, what we want to do is have the ability to temporarily cut the radio signal to the pot, which is going to be that guy on the bottom that goes to that right-hand bottom lug of the bottom of that IF can. So we're going to put a switch wire in between those two. Be a little skinny wire and a little switch that'll come out the back. What we also need to do is make sure when we run the audio in, it's obviously not stereo. We're going to put 2 resistors, tie the ends together on one side, then display them out on the other. Have your right and left channel go in, and then that'll give you true mono. And then we'll need to put a little, this is a .02, I think, rated cap that goes from the top, well, one side of the primary to the top of the volume pot. That's going to preserve our set's automatic gain control feature, so that when you turn the radio back on, if this is still in circuit and you don't have this, you might get a little bit of oscillation, so you don't want to mess up the radio. So that's it. What I tend to do is glue them as close as I can to the volume pot. I think I can bend that wire a little bit and push it down. And I use a little glue, like a little super glue. You want to basically clean and roughen up both surfaces of this and the chassis. Stick it in there. That usually holds really well. And so then we'll run a Bluetooth through it. This is my little Bluetooth thingamabob. So I'll show you what that looks like in the end, and then we'll give it a test. And the case has been sitting out in the hot baking sun all day, so it's probably good and cured, or at least it's hardened up enough not to, make fingerprints in it or anything. And then we'll do a final reassembly, and I can't wait to actually start working on that. So, I'm not sure why we're getting so many consoles, but I sure like working on them. All right, so the audio input system is installed. We have our primary going to either side of the volume pot here. We have our .05 rated cap, going to the top of the volume pot from the other side of the primary of the transformer. They have our right and left channels going into those resistors. I have a switch wire that's coming out the back that's basically going to connect or disconnect the radio. We have our cable running through the back of the set, and I tied a knot and encased it in glue so it won't chafe or anything like that. So again, I'll need to put a switch back here to restore radio when someone wants to listen to it, but on Bluetooth, it's working pretty good.
Take a tour through Texas and you can find it all. Close your eyes and Beaumont, it sounds just like Montreal.
Is that right?
And that stretch from Post to Marcus like that German Autobahn. And Austin just like a Hollywood.
It seems like it's sounding pretty good. There's no radio coming through, which is what I want. So, I think we're just about ready to start doing some reassemblage here. Alright, well, she is done. She being the proverbial word, being now that it's cocktail pink. You know, like, I know it's definitely a controversial color choice, but I think this turned out really well. This is, in my opinion, real sharp. This is going to probably make some lady very, very happy. Like I said, this color does really well for us. I'm pretty satisfied with the finish. It looks like, you know, it's not runny, it's not uneven, it's pretty glossy. That's what I want. And it sounds good. Anyway, this is streaming from my hometown station out of Knoxville, Tennessee, WDVX. They're having a fundraiser right now. They're strictly independent radio. They do not get, they don't have any commercials or anything like that. They started in a 16-foot camper back in 1997 with 100 watts, and they've been simulcasting online for 20 years. I know I'm advocating for them, but I listen to their station and every day. So if you go to WDVX.com/donate, they're doing their fundraiser right now, or you can donate anytime because you may be watching this years from now. Who knows? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I know this one kind of started out as a disaster, and I made a lot of really stupid mistakes, and it's always really humbling when something like this, and you're like, oh, that'd be cinch. You know, kind of like defeats you. It's a little humbling. But in the end, it turned out pretty good. Even the back has a little bit of red in it, so that kind of goes with the new color scheme. And I'm going to let it play here for about 2 hours and make sure nothing's going to thermally break down inside the case. Alright, so until the next time something comes across the workbench, which is, in fact, going to be that console. See you guys next time. Adios.
Coming in, I said, I didn't pass anything but a little bitty camping trailer. They said, guess what? So we turned the bus around and went back up there, and there was Grace, standing out in front of that camper waving at us. We went in, and little did we know we were going to be doing the interview in Studio C, which stood for couch. It was just wonderful. We had the best time. Grace was wonderful. We couldn't believe a radio station, community radio in a camping trailer. How cool is that? A 40-watt signal. You know, technology has come a long way. Oh, back in the day, people would get in their cars and drive to places where they could just pick up WDVX and listen to the great programming. Nowadays, people all over the world can listen to WDVX radio because of streaming. I just can't imagine a better radio station. It's become my favorite one, I'll tell you what. And all the disc jockeys and Tony and everybody and Red have been so great to us over the years. And I know that everybody listening right now thinks this is their favorite radio station too. So it's time to ante it up. Fun drives on. Let's support the best radio station around. Thank y'all.